I? Says he pointedly.
Yeah, I was thinking that before I got on the call. And I just thought, I don't know, but more than I don't know.
Which is fine.
Yeah,
Absolutely fine. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's a mix, Vince. It's like the story of me or what I think is me feels still just dreadful. Like just thinking, oh God, this is, I can't just bleh. And then at the same time, Vince, a kind of but I'm okay. It's very,
Yeah. So would you say that you're okay with being that, whatever that is? Or are you okay in spite of it? Are you okay as well as it? Is it separate okay or in it?
I think it's a really good question, Vince. I think it's a mix of in spite of and as well as something like, yeah. I'm not quite sure. There's
So
it's
this
like
is fine. Yeah.
It's like the first feeling, almost like upon awakening, or just the first feeling is like, this is, and then I can find something else, but it feels like it takes a bit of effort or a bit of thought counterintuitively, or a bit of something, a bit of like, no, this is okay. This is just, this is just a story, or this is just stuff happening, or this is, I don't know, Vince. So yeah.
So how about this? I mean, I reckon that's a pretty good place to be, and what it's trying to tell you is that whatever is going on can't be really clearly defined or described even, right? Because you're now seeing the complexity of it. It's huge. There's so much going on at the same time, and the moment you try and describe it, what you've got to do is you've got to turn it into something simplistic. You've got to reduce it down to something that language fits on, and that's not what it is. That's about as good as you can do to describe it to somebody else, to communicate it. But it's not what it is at all. What it is is way too complex to yeah.
That's really nicely put, Vince. That's kind of what I mean when you say "How are you?" or when anyone says,
Absolutely,
like, "How are you doing?" I just kind of go,
yeah. Well,
it's impossible,
that happens to me every time. Like I just cannot find an answer, and I get thrown into this abyss every time I try and think about how am I.
Yeah.
So I do know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. It's what's that word? Like trying. If I say not being self-indulgent, like kind of not. There's always like a fear of disappearing up my own backside, like kind of, what is going like, I'm the center of the universe. You really got to know what's going on here, and just relaxing, just no, it's expansive. It's that latter one that's so beautiful. That bit of writing you did, Vince, called "The Dying." I have it copied on my.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
It's a coming again. There's something like when I reread that and just think, just the expanse is what's here.
Yeah. So what if we, we use it, a little bit of humour kind of can attach itself to this one, but in actual fact, it's serious stuff. And that is that when you disappear up your own arsehole, you emerge into a totally different dimension. And it has no edges. It has no beginning and no end, no top or bottom. It is infinity, if you like, in all directions. But there isn't even really any directions. It is somewhere that is totally unexplainable. And, in there is like that metaphorical absence of ego. There is no body to say, where am I or what's happening? And so what I'm trying to do here is to kind of promote a fantasy that is not describable, not definable. It is just this. So when what people will say is, oh, I experienced this emptiness. It was fullness too. Now I get what that means, but there's no way that logic or any kind of grammar or words can make any sense of it. There is a full emptiness and empty fullness. They're both right, and they're both, it's not explainable,
Yeah.
And what's going on for you is not explainable. You've got to simplify it to the nth degree, back to a simplistic level, in order to even begin to make any sense of it. You can't make sense of it. It's beyond that. You've moved to a place beyond that, I think. From what you're telling me, from what I hear you say, you've moved beyond that. Now you're at a place where you've got to go, well, fuck, if I can't talk about it, if I can't define it, if I can't describe it, what am I left with? Well, you might as well just take the mind and put it on the shelf, because this is territory where it doesn't work. But what you experience does. What you experience has solidity, stability, even though it might be ever changing. But that experience is very real. You just cannot paint a picture of it. Not accurately. If you say it's this color green, you look at it and you realise that, in fact, there's 1,000 shades of green in it. None of them are it. It's all of them. And at the edges, it changes into something else as well. Do you get the sense of infinite complexity?
Then, honestly, Vince, I don't know about the infinite. I can hear.
No, I'm not talking about
yeah,
I'm not talking about the
yeah.
infinite stuff. I'm talking about, can you get a glimpse of a feeling that might be somehow reflective of that?
Yeah, it sounds so incisive what you're saying, Vince. It's very on the money, as I'd say. Like, I can feel definitely, like, how can I put it? Like, edges are blurred, edges between me and something else, and between, the idea of sound and the idea of vision or whatever.
Yes.
There's just a softening of the edges there,
Right.
and it, if I could put it in a way, I think it feels like almost kind of been in something like a limbo state. Like I've kind of shifted somewhere, but I don't know where I am.
Yes.
And
Great.
it's like trying not to kind of make something happen, but also
Sure.
trying
Yep.
to
Yep.
make something happen at the same, like
Yeah.
it's both.
Yeah.
But I keep thinking as well. There's an idea keeps coming up that my mate Tom said to me some time ago, and it feels really true to me that it's a lot more simple than I'm making it. There's something. It's like I've got an overactive mind. There's
Yeah. That's right. But and
something
I
when I,
agree with
yeah,
him. I reckon Tom is
yeah,
right about that. However, you're not going to
yeah,
see how simple it is until you've got it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But see, the
Um,
thing is, we're beyond the point of saying I haven't got it. I have got it, because there's
yeah,
no got and there's no it and there's no I.
yeah,
Right. So what we're at is a place where this, and that's a shitty, stupid way to put it, but it's as good as I can come up with to describe the totality of your experience, which is the totality of your world. Right. This, there's absolutely nothing I can say about it. That it's just beyond all of that. Right. So the idea of being able to make sense of it, the idea of using, applying a ruler to it and measuring something like what progress or anything like that, that just becomes ridiculous. Now, if you look at that, now what we've got is something that's a little bit tangible for you to grasp hold of, because I recognise that the instability when first visiting this realm is a bit unnerving. It's like we want to know. We want to know something, and so we grasp for whatever we can. We look for meaning, and what we end up doing, of course, is creating meaning. And the whole purpose of that meaning is just to make us feel okay, to make us feel a bit stable. When in
yeah.
fact the value is in allowing the instability to continue. So. You know what? I just forgot what I was going to say.
I love your honesty, Vince. It really, no, honestly, mate, it's such a gift because it allows everyone else to kind of just say, "Oh, a bit sorry, I forgot." But I think what I was hearing is that if I can almost like stay with that instability, because that's what feels frightening, Vince. That's what I don't like. That's what I
Yes. Yep.
yeah,
Now
it's
I can tell you that I
yeah,
know
yeah,
that. Hi, Anand. I can tell you that I know that there's no danger in that instability, as much as
yeah,
it feels like and seems like there is for you. That there
yeah,
isn't any actual
yeah.
danger, but that's
Thanks,
only going to
mate.
be words for me to tell you that,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and it's only by looking around in it with a
So
sense of discovery that you will also realise that there's no danger in it, even though it comes with a sense of danger.
yeah,
It provokes this, well, from at a minor level, a sense of uncertainty. At a major level, a sense of terror or fear. But
mm,
that's because, like, imagine how you would feel if you woke up tomorrow morning and you find that you're not lying in your bed, that you're lying on a rock on an alien planet that doesn't look anything like Earth. The sky is different, the ground is different, everything's different. All of a
yeah,
sudden, you find yourself on this alien planet and you go, fuck, where am I? What's happening? Am I going to survive? Is it dangerous? All of this stuff comes up. Well, that's really literally what's
yeah.
happening for you. You're on
It
this in this
does. Yeah,
unfamiliar
yeah,
place. Yeah.
yeah. That's yeah. Thank Vince. That really, really helps. And just hear you say it, I kind of think, oh, somebody kind of understands. Because it feels so weird, and almost like
Mm,
life-threatening at times. But then when I stop and I kind of think, well, what is it? What's scary? What's frightening? There's nothing there. There's nothing, it
mm.
does start to dissolve, but it's just,
Yep. So it's a
yeah,
case of familiarity.
true.
It's a
Yeah,
case of hanging there. The more you visit this place, the more familiar it will become,
yeah,
and with that, the less scary it will become.
yeah.
But this place is not an actual place, and it's and
Yeah.
it and as soon as you go, oh, okay, and you let go of that fear, the whole thing will
Mm,
morph. The whole scene will become different. All of a sudden, this
mm,
alien planet will grow trees, beautiful, lush vegetation will appear, or something will change. Yeah.
mm, mm,
I'm blown away by the complexity of being human. It's just infinitely, infinitely complex. Amazing thing. Just mind boggle at how good this fucking body is that it can keep on. It can keep us upright. It can digest food. It can, get stuff out of the air. It can, all this amazing stuff goes on and we don't even know about it. We don't even
yeah.
have no effort required whatsoever. Just existence is all it takes to do that. And yet we're incredibly primitive at the same time as that infinite complexity. And that primitiveness is that we shy away from, we hide from the complexity as a race, as humans. We've evolved a conceptual world to give us the illusion or to create the delusion that we're in control and everything is fine. But it's a fragile delusion, isn't it? Because
Mm,
we're always kind of poking the edges of it. But we don't need to do any of that. See, so as soon as we get a little bit more sophisticated and we can drop that old defense mechanism and the old delusion, all of a sudden this becomes heaven. This is such an amazing, wonderful place. And the things like, wow. I mean, a moment ago, you almost teared up in appreciation for being understood. How fucking magical is that? What happened between us? What happened? What happened? Like, is something actually traveling along some actual pathway between you and your screen and the internet and the air and back into my screen and
mm,
into me and back and forward or whatever? Fuck knows. It's just impossible to know that. But yet something happened between us.
mm,
How magical, absolutely magical. Well, you know what? The whole world lives and works actually at that level. The world that we think it
mm,
is it's like a kiddie's playground.
mm, mm,
So can you get the invitation for discovery? Wow, 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 wow. Oh, what 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 is what is here to see? I can't describe it. I'm not going to try, but I can appreciate it. I can experience my version of it. And that's constantly changing. It's a never ending kaleidoscope of wonders.
mm.
And the old way will be, what do I do? What do I do to achieve something that I don't know what it is? I know I want something. I know this something might be called waking up or enlightenment or something. And I want it, even though I don't know what it is.
Mm.
Now, is it really the case that that's what you want? Or is it really a case of turn around 180 degrees and say, what I don't want is that? Is what I want really an expression of what I don't want?
Mm.
And it's easy when you turn around and face what you don't want to label it suffering.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's it's like that really basic kind of, I just don't want suffering. I want less suffering. I want to be happy, be happier.
Absolutely. That's what
But
everybody in the world wants. They just
yeah,
want to be
exactly.
happy.
Just
Yeah.
happy.
Mm.
Which, that's understandable. That's really understandable.
Mm.
Um, but it's almost like with this stuff, I won't put a label on it, I'll just say this stuff. It's just wanting to see. It's just like
Yeah.
what is it? And having hints and glimpses and ayahuasca trips and whatnot, and just like, oh
Everything that we do.
wow,
Yep.
yeah.
Mm.
And I can't. I mean, I suppose I could just kind of put all this stuff down and just walk away, but I don't think I could. I don't. But I think I
I
almost
agree.
tried that last. I think in I was around about January or something, Vince. I can't quite remember what happened now, but I just kind of stopped listening, and then yeah, it was really funny. It was just like, nah, that's not it. That's not, it was something like, oh, I'm just gonna get on with my life and dot dot dot. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Um
I reckon that's a good one. I reckon I have to
yeah,
actually tell people sometimes, just
yeah,
put it all aside and go back to
yeah,
the old way. And you know what?
yeah.
They can't.
Yeah, it was that. It was like a
Mm.
couple of weeks, and I was like, no, I need to. And I
Yeah.
think that's when I reconnected with or when I connected with your calls, Vince. I started listening to them just on YouTube, and I'd just lie on the sofa, and I just had to. It was just I just had to. That was that. Yeah,
Mm.
and then yeah,
So when
but
you're doing that,
mm,
when you're listening to it and you go, oh yeah, oh okay, that resonation that happens when
yeah,
something resonates with you, that actually changes you.
yeah,
Right. So
yeah.
so this if you can pull up a
That's
story that says I'm no better off than what I was 6 months ago, or
yeah.
something like that,
Mm,
straight away you realise that it's not true. There has been a
no,
whole lot of little things that have happened. So
mm,
and these changes, these incremental changes, are the way things do. Like, for example, that grass grows, but look at it all you like and you won't see it growing, will you? And changes in you happen at the same pace as grass growing, or not. But I mean, that's a good way to look at it.
yeah, yeah.
So how do you know grass has grown? You don't look at it for 3 weeks, then you come back and compare it to the way it was, and then you know it's grown. So if you do the same thing, you, especially with a lot of these little moments that you have, because they're direct experience, there's no mind involved, they don't get laid down in memory. So at the end of the day, you can have had a couple of experiences that have lasted a second or a millisecond or whatever, and you don't even remember it. But when it's happening, you do, you know it. but you don't remember it afterwards because nothing gets put into memory. And so you can say, well, nothing's changed. And then if you actually compare to the way you were 6 months ago, you can go, you know what? Once upon a time, I would have lost it with that. Now I don't. Now something else quite different occurs.
Is that true, Vince? It's how can I put it? Like some that non-duality experience that you don't think that gets put into memory. That just kind of sits somewhere.
Well, that's my experience.
Mm.
The idea that it doesn't get put into memory is a story I made up to
Yeah,
explain
yeah,
not remembering
yeah,
stuff, but
yeah.
it seems to me that way. Like I
Mm,
can forget what I did 5 minutes ago, or I can forget a
mm,
sentence some
mm.
seconds after it forms.
Yeah, yeah. Which is really quite beautiful, isn't it? To be just kind of constantly,
Yeah,
uh,
constantly
you know,
fresh.
fresh. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Just as a tiny side point, Vince, I think so brilliant to be here, but I think this is the last Wednesday. I call it Wednesday morning, Wednesday tea time for you, because fly back to Istanbul on Saturday and then work from Monday, school from Monday. The kids aren't back for a week or so, but we'll be back in work. And I think that's so. I think that's there's a part of my mind now, kind of doing a countdown and doing an anxiety thing, and I'm just like, yeah, what happened? But,
Yeah, okay. Well, the recordings will still be
thank you.
available to you, and
Yeah,
maybe my Monday morning would be your Sunday evening, so presumably that
yeah,
might be possible for you. We
yeah.
don't know.
Or
Yeah,
Saturday, hopefully, once Saturday's back. Oh yeah, Sunday, yeah, Sunday night as
yeah.
well.
My
But
Saturday night is probably be your Saturday morning. Would it be?
yeah,
Mm,
that was my regular. But
mm.
I just it's yeah, just thank you for these meetings, friends. Especially this one in the UK feels like 7 a.m. It is something kind of special to be here the last few weeks. So yeah, thanks.
Mm. Yeah, well, appreciate that the time between meetings
Mm,
are also very valuable times for you in terms of experiencing things that
mm,
are opportunities to allow discovery to happen. If I was a genie and I was to be able to wave a magic wand, I could imagine that I could invoke one of, well, immediately I can think of about 5 different spells that would so-called fix you, right? And one of them would be simply that, to say, if you were to discover the value of an attitude, and when I say that, I'm avoiding saying adopt an attitude, because that's not what we're talking about. But if you were to discover a way of seeing your experience, and that's all aspects of your experience, as no different than the breeze touching your cheek when you walk outside,
mm,
there would be no more suffering. And we would look at the word happiness and we would go, well, that's probably not quite the right word, but contentment is a better way. And out of contentment, happiness can arise. And suffering, you would say, well,
mm,
the same stuff that used to occur that caused me suffering. Well, that stuff still happens, but you know what? Now I'm okay with it. It's different. So I could wave that wand and just say, abracadabra, Declan's suffering be gone. And that would be it. You would then laugh and go, well, once upon a time I would have called this awake. Now I can see that that's a total bullshit story. But it's good. I love it. That would be one spell that could be. And it's as simple as recognizing that the only suffering is in the description of something, the perspective of something. It's not actually in anything. Oh, well, so that brings me to another story. Do you get have you ever considered the Buddhist emptiness principle?
Don't think so, Vince, doesn't it?
Okay, what they're saying is I'm making it simplifying it, but essentially what they're saying is nothing, no thing, no person, no object, no animal, no vegetable, nothing has intrinsic characteristics. Right? So an example might be to say, in a cup, there is no cupness. In a car, there is no carness. Right? So in a cup, the cup's a great example, right? Because when you look at what a cup is, you look at it, right? We take this object that we call a cup and we put it on the table in front of us. And what we've got is we've got colours, shape, texture, and form, right? And the form happens to be a cylinder with a bottom in it. And it's got a thing called a handle attached to the side of it. And then we've got a thing that we call a cup, right? But is the cupness in the handle or the bottom or the cylinder or the space inside it? No, the cupness is in the story that we put on it that says we can use this to drink out of. It's a thing to contain a liquid to drink out of. Yeah, it's not so simple because we can keep pencils in a cup, or rubber bands or whatever. We can use it to contain all sorts of things. So you can say, oh, maybe it's a container. Well, but it's not just a container. It's a container to drink out of. Right now, that purpose is purely in the story that we attach to it. Right? So if you have an animal or an alien see a cup and they've never been taught what a cup is, they're going to look at it and they're not going to know they can drink out of it. They might work it out. If it's full of water, a dog will probably drink out of it, but it's not going to look at an empty cup and say, I can drink out of that if there's water in it. So the inherent characteristic of cupness is applied to us with our mind, applied to it with our mind. It's not in the object itself. Do you get that? Does that make sense?
Well, it does. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. But it's in the meaning that we give to
absolutely
yeah,
right. And I'm saying that organism with the label of Declan also has no inherent characteristics. There's no Declanness in Declan, except what we've applied to it.
Yeah.
And so what we're really talking about here is the continual application of Declanness. And you've only got to look at you in the mirror and you'll apply a whole lot of you'll apply a lot of characteristics, but they're not inherent, they're applied. And that's what we're doing with this whole waking up process. We're not meaning to stop applying those things. We're needing to recognize that that's what happens when we do it. That's all. I mean, you know, if we stop applying the idea of a cup to a cup, then we could never drink out of a cup again, could we? So we're not going to stop doing it, but we're just going to recognise that it's a cup because we say it's a cup, not because of what it actually is.
And wow, yeah. I thought you were gonna say, Vince, that that's like uh almost like that experience that I have of suffering, that
It's applied, yes.
it's applied, yeah.
Yeah.
It's applied, like
Right. But
when you kind of,
the form and the shape and the colours and the texture of the
yeah,
suffering are there, right? It's the actual pain that arrives as a result of applying the characteristic of suffering to it that causes the
yeah,
pain. Yeah.
yeah,
So suffering
yeah,
isn't suffering. So if we have circumstances that cause suffering, we say that in the old way, circumstances that cause suffering, those circumstances will still be there. But you know, those circumstances never caused the suffering. They're just circumstances.
they're just there. Yeah.
It's the way we saw it that
Mm,
produced the suffering. So we respond to the
mm,
story that those circumstances cause suffering. And that's what
mm.
actually causes the suffering. Now, it's not a case of not doing that. When we say this, it sounds like we're saying, don't do it and you won't suffer. Well, that's not the case.
Yeah,
You can't not do it.
yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah,
It's a case of recognizing that that's what happens and it stops.
yeah, yeah.
But when we're talking about this, it's important that you don't adopt that spiritual concept, if you like,
Mm,
and say, therefore,
yeah.
I won't suffer because I'll tell myself that it's just a story. That doesn't work.
It's really hard not to do that kind of like, oh, what was it, Vincent?
Yes, yes. Let's
Yeah,
write it down and pin it
it's
on the fridge.
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I wrote a story about that.
yeah.
It'll appear
But
in
some
about
things
8
like that
days. Yeah,
really do. I can literally, Vince, I can read your the dying story, and I can feel better. It feels like I feel, like there's some,
yeah, yeah.
there's a resonant, the words resonate with me, but it's also, it can be a pitfall, that stuff as well,
That's right.
can't it?
Yes, if you,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So if they resonate, so here's a bit of just a skill development thing. If the words resonate, it's kind of like you're touching the edge of what's intended with those words. But it's in the words themselves, there is no salve, there is no band-aid, there is no, right? And yet that's what's actually happening. But that can tell you that what the words point to is meaningful for you.
Yeah. Mm.
I have a question. Vince, is it like in this joke? The joke is um, that there is a man and he says, "Oh, I'm starting therapy because I have a problem. Every time I enter my workplace, I'm so anxious I pee my pants." And after some time going to this therapy, someone asked, how are you now? Oh, it's great, the therapy worked. So you're not peeing your pants anymore. You're not so anxious. I do. I pee my pants but I don't care about it one bit.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. And it's a good joke. It's a joke because it's good. Yeah.
So is this what we are doing here?
Yeah. Except the analogy of peeing your pants and suffering is not a good analogy.
Please elaborate.
Yes, it is a tricky one too. The 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 therapist helped the man to not care about peeing his pants when in fact he should have been helping the man not care about going to work. Or rather, be more specific, not care, not respond to the anxiety that he felt when he went to work. So in a sense, what you can say that joke really points to bypassing in that he's the reason why he pees his pants has not been touched, just how he feels about it is. If we were able to recognise that the conditions that he worked under that he was believing caused his anxiety and the resultant pant wetting. It's not the conditions that cause the wetting the pants. It's his attitude towards those conditions. It's the way he felt about them. And so if the therapist was to point him to what is it about those conditions, what is it in you that responds to those conditions with anxiety? Now, it might be that they're legitimate concerns, and the best thing for him to do would be simply not go there anymore. Don't go to there. Or they might be projected problems. They might be not actual problems, but just perceived as problems. We don't know because the joke doesn't elaborate enough for us to know that. But essentially, it's with the suffering conditions. It could be exactly the same thing. It might be that once we see through the stories that cause us the experience of suffering, might end up being that, okay, we have to set boundaries in order to not have that because they're physical, if you like, or we recognise that it's some inbuilt fear that we have that's causing us to wet our pants. So it might be that when the man was a child and he got really anxious and he wet his pants and somebody yelled at him. His mother yelled at him, "Why did you do that for? You're a stupid little boy," or whatever, and abused him, right? And that's been an issue for him all his life, and he goes to work and every time his boss yells at him, he responds by wetting his pants because that's what he did when he was a kid. That's a possibility. Now, if he recognises that that's the child's response to being yelled at, that might be enough to change it. Or it might be that he says, "I'm out of here. I don't want to work with a boss that yells at me." or variations and
yeah,
yeah.
I thought about this. Um, when we were talking about some situation where a person responds with anger and a question was, are you in physical danger? So if it is the case, then remove yourself from
Absolutely,
this
yeah.
situation. But I thought also about when someone is psychologically bullied,
Yeah.
like at work, it also has physical consequences.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not so.
Yep. Well, the usual thing, of course, is that we will adopt a defensive attitude, whether that's fight, flight, or freeze. You know, a version of that is the usual response to being bullied, which becomes a survival thing, doesn't it? This might sound weird, but about 6 years ago now, when we first moved into this house, a neighbour on one side of me was a very unpleasant man, and at one point he started yelling at me and accusing me of um, breaking down a fence that, in fact, had rotted off at the ground because it was, in wet ground. Anyway, he's yelling at me, and I was yelling back at him. I would tell you what, I spat the dummy in a huge way. I was yelling, and and that was so good. Now, not in retrospect, it was great. At the time, it wasn't, but I learned a lot from that. And I kind of look forward to getting in that situation again, just to see how I would react, because I have no idea. I fantasize that I could, be all cool while he's yelling and screaming and frothing at the mouth. But, very likely I would respond in a similar way to the way I did before, and I would yell and scream and froth at the mouth right back at him. Who knows until it happens? Yeah. I wrote a story yesterday about language, and today I wrote a story about stories. And when I did that, I kind of suddenly saw the connection between the two. And now I'm right at the beginning of writing a third one, which is starting off with an apology. And I want to apologise to everybody at these groups for giving the impression that stories are unavoidable. And the reason that I came to that was that I spoke with somebody recently, last night in fact, who has experienced no stories, moments of no stories at all. And until I came across that person, I had no idea that that would be possible. I always thought that there will always be stories there. It's just a matter of whether we engage with them or not. But it could well be that you will experience no stories at some time. I don't know. But this
What
is
would
so
you do it?
juicy, this. What would it be like? I don't know. I haven't had that experience. But I do frequently have the experience where I presume that there are stories there, but because I'm not engaged with them, I couldn't tell you what they're about. But it's like I still have this feeling that they exist in the background, but I just don't get involved with them. But this person was saying that they had experiences where there was no stories there at all. So even the space between thoughts, that one that you constantly hear, I've never experienced that. I've never experienced that total nothingness. So I don't know about it. But because I've never experienced it, I've been talking like that's what everybody's experience is, and it's not necessarily the case. Okay, I'm just going to have to go and get my power supply in a few minutes. I will. I've got 9% left. That went fast.
It's an interesting question for me, Vince, whether you can... I mean, you're saying that you still haven't experienced no stories. So, I mean, do you talk about just what you know? If you can know anything, I guess you can only know your own experience. But now you feel like you can talk about something you haven't experienced because you've heard that it's somebody else's experience.
Yeah, well, but okay, just to correct you from there are a lot of my. This sounds really weird. I know. I have a lot of experiences that I don't know about. I couldn't. They're not definable or clear or whatever. So I do frequently have experiences that are. I don't know how to put it. They're too subtle or too vague or too something to be able to tell you
Kind of
about.
know
So there's a lot.
fully.
I don't know about. Yeah. I mean, right now, that's something that you've just said prompted me to think of the word tinnitus. And the moment I think of the word tinnitus, I can hear this sound. It's a buzzing sound. That I would just say, oh, that's my tinnitus or tinnitus, or however you say it. But I only become aware of that when I think about it. And when I'm not thinking about it, is it there? It seems like it would be, but I have no idea whether it is or not. Yet it's definitely there when I think about it. And the story that jumps up, if I think about it in this way, is that I'm just not aware of it. It's there, but I'm not aware of it. Well, that's a kind of a really weird conceptual thing to come up with, isn't it? Because if I'm not aware of it, it's not there for me, from my perspective. Now, because tinnitus is not an ear problem, it's a brain problem. Right? It's in the audio section of the brain. I forgot where I was going with that one. Oh, right. Okay, I know. It can't be measured. If it was an ear issue, I could get an instrument and I could measure it. But because we've got tinnitus, it's purely a subjective experience and it can't be measured. No instrumentation that I know of can hear tinnitus. Do you say tinnitus or tinnitus?
Tinnitus.
Yeah, I would say tinnitus too. Okay. So no instrumentation can measure it, so it's purely subjective. So, so logically speaking, if I'm not aware of it, it doesn't exist for me. even though the mechanism might still be going. And that's a pretty big one that hasn't come to light just recently, but it's a pretty big one with this awakening thing. It's always a subjective experience that we're talking about. We're not talking about absolute anything. We're talking about what it is from our perspective all the time. So when I talk about how things are for me, it's important that you appreciate that you're going to have your version of that, not going to have my version. So when we even say stories, I mean, that's a simplistic notion, isn't it? What's a story? When we say, well, every thought is a story, well, because it's a story. Does a story to have more than one word? Is a story required a minimum of so many words to be a story? I tell you, a single word contains a whole story every time. You say any word, utter the first word that comes to mind and look at it, and you'll discover that it's actually a whole story involved in it. And that there are other stories hanging off that story that are not noticed until you go looking. But the whole idea of it being a story is again, it's to do with us, our communication. We can only so the word story can be a whole lot of things. So it turns out that I wrote the story about language yesterday and how powerful it is in conditioning, in directing our attention or our awareness. And today I wrote a story about stories, and all of a sudden it seems like, you know what, I could actually do half a dozen stories along these same lines just to cover a whole range of things. There's many, many aspects to this story stuff. But the bottom line for us is, because they use the medium of thought to appear, it's important that we appreciate, that we really grok and get a hold of the fact that thoughts are not the cause of anything. Even though we can react or respond to thoughts, to stories, it's not in the words. The words don't have the inherent characteristic of causing suffering. It's how we feel about that, where that suffering turns up from.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I've just got to go and get my power supply. Just have a yak or not between yourselves while while I do that. I won't be a sec.
Declan, I wanted to ask you about, you know, like I was telling this joke.
Yeah, yeah.
And with you feeling blah,
Yeah.
isn't it like in this joke mm, that the man feels anxious, and Vincent that it is a mistake, that thanks to the therapy he doesn't care about being anxious and peeing his pants.
Yeah,
but it is bypassing. So what do you think it's feeling okay about blah is bypassing, or is it?
No, I honestly, because I was thinking that myself, I honestly see it as something totally different. Because, like you, I just saw the joke at face value and just thought, oh, he doesn't care about peeing his pants. That's really funny, just pee your pants. Sorry, Vince, we've come back to the joke. Where it's like what Vince said, I thought, oh God, Vince really knows what he's talking about. Because, of course, what a therapist should be doing is making the guy not anxious about going to work. Like obviously, and I didn't even see that. I just saw a joke at face value and just thought, oh, it's really funny. He's going around peeing his pants and doesn't care anymore. Great job done. And I don't know with the stuff we're doing, it feels different. I can't. If I try and put it into words, it will fall apart. But it's almost like kind of something like seeing that the anxiety isn't there, or that the anxiety is anxiety if I think it's anxiety. The anxiety is a story, something along those lines. Yeah.
Can I just say something here? Oh, sorry.
Please do.
Of course.
My reaction to the story was, don't go to work. That seems the obvious solution, or not the obvious, but a solution, which kind of fed into something I was trying to cope with during the week. This idea that you often hear that we should change those things that we can change, accept those things that we can't change, and have the wisdom to know the difference. And you see that on kind of fridge magnets or stuff, and you think, is that true? Is that wise? What are the implications of that? Because I'm always trying to change things. Rather than change myself, I want to change the problem. I want to fix the problem so I don't suffer, rather than just fix my reaction to the situation. I kind of, when you look into it, kind of get the conclusion that, can you actually ever change anything? Or do you just have to accept everything? And you just find yourself in daily situations where something is really annoying you, and I kind of think, oh, I must, respond to this in Vince's way, and not, see where the suffering's coming from, go through the stages, recognize it, accept it, investigate it, and kind of come to some wisdom through that, rather than trying to change things. I mean, how do you know? What is the wisdom? How do you know what you can change and what you can't change? I mean, is that a feasible thing to try to analyze or not?
Depends where you're up to. It depends on what you already see. So that's a great fridge magnet for people that live in the conceptual world, because in that world they still believe they have control enough to change things. And when things change, that confirms for them that they can change things. Right? But at a certain point in this investigation, you realise that you don't have control. You haven't got the ability to change something. But things will change depending on something, depending on what you bring to it, maybe. And so as in a simplistic way, I would say what will allow things to change will be you experiencing it from a perspective that recognises what is actual and what the conceptual components of it are. So knowing that's the wisdom to know the difference is in that, I would say. So I would rewrite that thing a little bit to say, to recognise what is actual and what is conceptual. And so because the people who, in the old way, the people that aren't on this path essentially live in a world that is 90% conceptual but believed to be actual. You know, they would take things like responsibility. They'll say, yes, that's definitely a thing. Truth, yes, that exists. Well, they don't. None of those things exist. They're concepts. And we can go on and on. We can talk about the self being a concept. It exists as a concept, but it's not actual. But it's complex because a concept has no inherent power, yet we respond to it, we react to it, and that is actual. But it's not the concept that has caused us to have the experience that happens when we react to it. It's our connection to that. It's our feelings about it. It's what we think of it, what we believe. So there's a whole complexity. So nothing is simple, of course. That's the first thing. Everything is very, very complex. So when you're down this path a certain way, you go, well, I can't change things. So did you get what I just said? I can't change things. That's not to say things can't change. Things will change. In fact, they can't not change. They're changing all the time. But what's involved in things changing? Well, sometimes some of the conditions involved in a change happen to be what I bring to it. And I don't need to apologise for saying I bring to it because you know what I mean. I can't say it in any other way. This organism, what this organism brings to it. And so if this organism doesn't react to those circumstances, it may not escalate. And that's different to when I did react in a different way and things did escalate into a shouting match or whatever caused the suffering. So change can happen. Now, it's a tricky one again. This gets really tricky in that it's not a case of feeling powerless. When I recognise that I don't have control, that doesn't mean I'm out of control, which has a certain conceptual meaning, or it doesn't mean I have no control, which is kind of like the opposite of being in control. Helpless. Neither of that, none of those things. When I say I have no control, it means that control is not an issue. It's not even considered to be control. Yet if somebody said, go harder, and I experience more effort being applied, is that control? Because I'm responding to what they've said? What I would say is that them saying that triggered the idea here, and that the brain computation that went on said more effort could be applied. So we've got to be really right on to this idea where when we talk about things like having control, it's a way of describing things, but it's not a very accurate way of describing things. Well, it's not accurate at all. But yet that's the normal. And so regardless of how far along this path we are, we're still going to talk to people who are not on this path like there is such a thing as control. And we don't have any need to correct them. We just know what it means for them and we know what it means for us.
But
Please go.
sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, does that mean that we shouldn't try to change things in the world? I mean, there must be appropriate action to be taken at some point.
No, it doesn't mean that.
You don't
So
accept everyone's behavior. It's okay to try to change somee's behavior, not try to change them, but try to modify
yeah,
their behavior.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, we want things to be better. And some things we know that particular action is a shitty action that's going to end up with not good results. Again, we're at a different level here. It's a bit more subtle. We're down a couple of steps, so to speak, and there's that saying comes into play again. Have the wisdom to know what's changeable or not, rather than what you can change. Let's change that into what is changeable, what is alterable or not. Have the wisdom to know, right? So I think the shit that's going on in Gaza, for example, or the stuff that's going on in Ukraine, I think that's not good. It's not good.
Okay.
But also
so,
recognise that I'm not going to be able to change it.
Okay, so in this joke, if it so happens that the only thing that can be changed is being ashamed about peeing my pants, then it is a good change.
Yep. And I would say start wearing nappies so it's not inconvenience. I don't know what you call nappies. What do you call nappies? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those absorbent panties that we have to wear when we get really old and we start peeing ourselves. Yeah.
You just change what you can change. If you
Yes.
can not
Exactly.
go to this work, don't.
Yeah.
If you can change your reaction of anxiety, good.
Mm. Yeah. So there was a couple of things with that joke. I mean, we're ceasing to see it as a joke when we talk about it like this, but okay, there was whatever the anxiety that got provoked by those conditions at work was one thing, and then there would be whatever anxiety got provoked by responding to those conditions with the pant wetting. And so you can see how it escalates into something.
Yes,
And so you can feel
it's
really
like
bad.
taking the layers, like
Yeah.
like an onion.
Mm. So because I think, oh, well, me as an individual, I'm not going to be able to change the situation in Gaza or Ukraine, doesn't mean I start saying it's okay. It kind of also means that I don't start saying it's not okay because it's too complex. I don't know all of the circumstances involved in it, but it appears from what I hear, what I'm fed, the information I have, that that's bad. It's not good. Does that mean I wouldn't sign a petition, or I wouldn't donate some money, or if the opportunity arises, those things will happen too? Will I go out and hold a placard? Probably not. Maybe I would under certain circumstances, but mostly, the way things are today, I probably wouldn't. If you went out and held a placard about Gaza in Australia, you'd get labelled an anti-Semitic. Well, that's far from the truth, but nevertheless, it's not a good thing. So, yeah, what do you do? How involved you get? That depends on circumstances. At a simplistic level, you could say, if you can do something about it, you'll do something about it. But the simplistic way of describing that is just the old way, if you like. So the new way would be to look at what actually happened and see that it was conditions that contributed to whatever action got taken, and that the description of "I did it" is just an overlay, and an overlay that ignores a whole lot of those conditions that made it possible. So if you would describe yourself, the vernacular might be as a control freak, then there's lots to look at for you. And some of those things will be, well, everything will be in the nub of that, which will be, how do I feel about it? So for some people, the idea that they're not actually in control evokes a fear level, a survival level fear. It can be a huge thing for some people. Some people will think, if they're not in control, that they're victims. Well, that's not true either. But that can be part of not wanting to give up this delusion that they're actually in control. But it seems to me, this is a great analogy, I love it, golf. If I hit a good golf shot, and I say to somebody, a partner I'm playing golf with, they hit a really good golf shot, and I say jokingly to them, and I do frequently, I say, "You would love to think that you did that on purpose, don't you?" So the idea is to say, well, if you really think you're in control, show me, do it again. Do it every time. If you can't do it every time, you're not in control. If you can't be sometimes in control and sometimes not in control, that's an oxymoron. Control means you're always in control.
Can I say something there, Vince? I've got a mate who's he was a monk for years, and when I've talked to him about this stuff, he says that he was a Gandhian. He was a follower of Gandhi. He's an Indian bloke, an old guy, and he says yes, there's myriad factors that lead to the golf shot going where we want it to, but we have a tiny little bit of input that we do have some control over, and that's the bit that you can use wisely.
Yes. I would just rephrase that to say we have a tiny bit of influence. We can contribute to the circumstances, a couple of the conditions. There's a million conditions, and we can bring 5 along ourselves. Yeah. So it's like, we contribute that bit of control, but it's like, they're just conditions.
And I still get a bit stuck on this, and even then, what we bring is conditioned by the million factors before.
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
It's very confusing, this idea of
But it's a classic example. I mean, I play with a bloke regularly, and he is a really good golfer. He is a really low handicap, and he's a really good golfer. And if he hits a bad shot, he spits a dummy. He loses it. He slams his golf club into the ground, and he swears and carries on. And I just go, surely that's going to muck up your next shot. And he says, "Oh, it makes me try harder." Well, I just, at that point, I'd drop it. There's no point in going anywhere with that, Yeah. But see, I figure this way. If I hit a really bad shot, and I do lots of them, I don't feel bad about that. I am disappointed. I do experience disappointment when that happens, but I don't take it personally. I don't feel bad in myself. I don't get upset with Vince because a bad shot happened. But that also means that if I hit a really good shot, I can't pat myself on the shoulder. Right? It's just the same. when I hit a really good shot, I say, Lady Luck was with me.
What's the motivation for playing?
I enjoy it. Yeah, there's something really good about when you hit that ball and it takes off and goes where you want it to go. That's a great feeling. I don't know why. Maybe it gives me a sense of control.
Well, that's what I mean. That's
Yeah. And there is a conscious motivation is the exercise I get walking around the course. So I generally do about 7,000 or 8,000 steps twice a week when I play golf.
because I mean I have played golf and I try to play golf, but I don't enjoy it because I know when I hit a good ball, well, that's really was kind of a fluke or whatever. No matter how much I practiced, and if you hit a good shot, you can equally hit a bad shot, and I just find it too frustrating. That well, maybe that lack of control, and maybe that's what it is. You'd like to feel that if you practice something, you will get better, and at golf, you can't rely on that. You can't rely on that.
No, I've done lots of practice and didn't improve.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I've only
I
just
thought,
gone back to golf. I had a year off because I had this artificial wrist put in, and
well done.
yeah. And so now I've gone back to golf. I've only played a few games, and I've played better now since I've been back than what I did before when I was playing all the time. Yeah.
Get the other wrist sorted out, then you'll be fine.
Yeah. I think the rest 12 months off was what did it, I think.
Yeah. I always like Bob Hope whenever he said that golf is a game that keeps people alive long after they should be dead.
Yeah, could be the case. Yeah.
So good luck with that.
Well, another big opportunity for recognition is that when I've hit that ball, no matter whether it's good or bad or otherwise, it's done. And feeling anything about how it should have been different is just insanity because it's done and finished.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that. Have a thought, it's done and finished. Say a word, it's done and finished. Make an action, it's done and finished. So that's a portal into a really big discovery that there is no such actual thing as continuity. That's just like the cupness in a cup. It's all mental. It's an overlay that we bring to it. So the past says nothing about the present, and the present says nothing about the future. Every single moment is absolutely fresh. Every single instant is fresh. And by the time you become aware of it, it's done, it's finished, it's gone. I came across a brilliant one the other day that said, right now in this moment, if you do not think of the past or the future, what's there? Right now, do that right now. Just dismiss any thoughts about the past or the future.
That's a gap between thoughts, isn't it, Vince? Excuse me.
Yes. Well, you're probably right about that. Because it's kind of, I get the experience almost like, it doesn't make sense, but like a thought stretched out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But which is impossible, of course, because that's the past and that's the future. Yeah.
Yeah, it does point to a truth and experience which seems very real and true, but it's kind of putting your brain into that mode and cutting off the other parts of your brain. And I don't know if you've read much about that kind of McGilchrist left brain, right brain, theory,
Yeah,
or
yeah, I get a bit of
or
that. Yeah,
whatever, which it seems to me very compelling. And whenever you do, like you were suggesting, forget the past, forget the future, just come into the present. That's just kind of switching all your circuits into some part of your right brain and ignoring
yes,
the other parts of your brain, which is fine as long as you're in that. But normally, both parts of our brain are working and kind of sort of against each
they
other,
always will. Yeah, yeah,
and kind of together. And I feel like a lot of what we kind of doing here is just trying to separate off and cut out that kind of tinnitus, cut off all those circuits that we don't want to be running because they're suffering, and just concentrate on the non-suffering reality and aspects of the brain. And yeah, that's a nice place to be, but without practicing, day to day, all the left parts keep chipping in with their analysis and their stories and the rest of it, and making life difficult. And yeah, I just feel sometimes it's kind of bypassing a different way, that we just want to go to those bits of the right brain which bring us into this expansive, non-self-conscious
yes.
experience.
That's exactly what we're doing. I would describe this from a scientific point of view, is that we're taking a whole lot of what we've been conditioned to use our left brain for, and we're moving it over to the right brain. Right. So what we're doing is the left brain is never going to lay down and die. It'll always be there. It'll always do what it does. But we've trained it, and this conceptual society that we've been brought up in, our left brain has been trained to be overactive, to be too busy, too much like the captain in control. And so what we're doing here is we're shifting a whole lot of what used to be left brain stuff over to the right brain. And the right brain doesn't have words for it. The right brain doesn't criticize it, doesn't judge it. The right brain just goes, oh, wow, oh, and there are no words. There's just this expansive awe, 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 in the right brain stuff. That's really what we're doing. We're reconditioning the brain to moving over to the right brain stuff. That's what this whole thing is about. So somebody that has a shift, and a sudden shift, an epiphany, they're going to be spontaneously in the right brain. And then when doubts come back, it's the left brain back in again. That's what happens for sure. Yeah. So it's not a case of. Yeah, sorry, go on.
I feel like awe, admiration is a left brain stuff. It's a judgment.
Yeah. So again, we're looking at kind of subtle levels of this stuff. So yes, we can have awe as a result of a judgment, but the sensation of awe, even if it's stimulated by a left brain judgment, is going to come out of the right brain. The experience of awe, that that's going to happen from the right brain. But the left brain may have propelled us into that place by having a judgment, by saying, isn't that wonderful? So the people that look at a wonderful sunset and go, isn't that fantastic? Cerebral, very cerebral kind of thing, because society has told them how wonderful the orange colours of a sunset over the ocean are. They're going to experience some right brain stuff. That's exactly what you said. It's the judgment that's made by the left brain that brings that about. And it's not direct.
Well, and also I'm saying that because when I try to do this, you know, cut the past, cut the future, it's very neutral for me. It's neither or, no fear,
Yes. Yep.
just appearing.
Mm. Yeah. That's. I think that's most people have an experience like that. You know, just nothing. Nothing can happen. Nothing comes out of that moment, which also can show us that we need stories about past and future in order to go to the shop, in order to cook our food, or to do whatever activity we do. So it's definitely not right to say that we should not have any stories at all. That's not possible. But it seems we can operate without stories. Our feet still know where to place themselves when we walk.
But you'll not know where to walk unless your left brain can read the map.
Well, I don't know, so it gets a bit tricky. So if you walk across the room and you automatically avoid the coffee table, and then you get to the other side of the room and somebody says, "Did you plan that?" You say, "What? You walked around the coffee table." "Oh, I walked around the coffee table." Okay. There were no thoughts about doing that at all. It just
But
happened.
if you're trying to navigate around a new city, I mean,
A
you
new
should be able to.
city, yes, yeah.
Well, you are making an assumption that left brain is only about thoughts and only about conscious thoughts.
No, yeah, I get that. Yeah. Yeah, so I say I don't actually know, but rather what I am saying is there's no conscious planning for a whole lot of the stuff that we do. The body just knows what to do. And without doubt, it knows because we've trained it.
Like, we don't plan our judgments, but judgments are left brain stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so much happens that we just really don't know how it happens.
Vince, can I ask?
Yes, Tammy.
Hi, thank you. So I had an exploration day where I kind of used your bot thing, and I just kind of I had the morning off, and then I freed some time in the afternoon. And I just kind of told it where I was at and devised just how to go about my day, and what would be helpful to do or say. And first I was at home kind of in that state, and then I went out with it, not state, but in what I was telling myself when things happened. So it was basically just naming and stuff. So it was like, this is a sensation, this is a thought, stuff like that, and just trying not to get carried away by anything, and just come back to this is a this is a that. And then I was like, oh goodness, how do I take this outside? I usually get carried away with people. But I was able to just take a long walk and keep doing it. It was really, really cool. You know, watching some fears did arise and thoughts about people or worries if something felt a bit dangerous or off, or I felt I needed to watch out for something.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just note that and notice it and come back to noticing and naming it rather than getting carried away too much. But I couldn't, again, I wasn't, you know, speaking of control, I wasn't in control of that, but observing it, and it didn't, you know, last longer than it needed to. So some nice things were that I didn't get carried away as much, and some other things were that, you know, you had said to me that don't worry, you're going to notice stuff. You don't have to be hypervigilant. Your body and mind are already trained on that. And a couple of times I was like, is there a dog around? And there was nothing perceptible. And I was like, you see, you're making stuff up. And a second later, one appeared. So I was like, okay, it must be that I really
Yeah.
am fine-tuned to these things, because the only 2 times I thought of a dog did appear within 30 seconds or a few seconds. And I was like, okay, maybe, you know, I smell it or I hear it imperceptibly. And
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah.
yeah, and a few times something looked suspicious or someone, and I just kept my eyes and mind kept track of it, and then until it dissolved, and was no longer appearing.
Okay. Yeah. So
So
you had a couple of really good experiences there that showed you stuff. Would you say?
yeah, it was a huge relief. Also because I didn't have to exclude anything. I was like, oh goodness, am I being unspiritual if now I'm, or like uncommitted if I like need to eat now or need to take a walk? And it was like, no, let's do something while you're doing this. Or like I was panicking about something and it's like, well, how can we look at it? You know, not ignore, or as you might say, bypass, or not ignore what's going on, like the psychological or relational issues that are coming up, but let's look at it from a different way. And so I very much appreciated that I didn't have to not eat or not relate to anything or anyone. Like, in other words, I was able to incorporate the questioning, and
Yes.
but
Yeah.
and yet I didn't get lost in life. In other words, it didn't ignore the
Mm.
life, but I didn't get lost. Anyway, it was a very, very special day to me. But of course, since then, I've gotten back into the usual craziness.
Well,
So
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Old habits. Old habits are hard to die. You know, they don't want to die. That's right. Yeah. But recognizing a possibility, that's huge. That's really huge. And it wasn't just a possibility. It even went as almost to the point of probability that if you were to um, make this a new habit, that a whole lot of the anxiety and hypervigilance that was there would just calm down a little bit and things would be a bit different. Yeah.
yeah, so that's the thing. Knowing my brain, the minute I like acknowledge anything is good or relieved or whatever, my brain is so practiced at
Yes.
finding ways to ruin everything and finding ways around it and finding arguments. And I'm just
Yeah.
like,
Builds it into something else.
yeah. And I'm just, it's like, okay, now I had that experience and now it's a thing I can talk about, rather than like, and I guess my question to myself is, how can I, in other words, then I kind of get panicky and anxiety of like, how do I build this into my life? In other words, you know, I happened to have the morning off that day, and then I was
Yeah.
able to make more time in the afternoon and evening. And it was just a day of this. Everything was going on, and it
Yeah.
happened to be
Yeah.
quiet that day and happened to be feeling well enough. It all just converged. But like, do I need to make this like a daily practice, or do I need to like live my life like this? Do I need to structure it in some way so I don't just like have experience and then get lost in life, have an experience and get lost in life? Or is that okay that it just happens sporadically as life leads me to it, and I kind of attend another meeting, remember it again, try and do it? Or
Yeah.
does it
Yeah.
need to be, would it be helpful if I try to make it into practice, or would then my mind then resist it and get bored with it and be like, this
Who
isn't
knows?
working.
Yeah, that's
So,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So all those questions are interesting, but there are no actual answers to them. Right? So allow them to just be there as questions, and look for, not so much for an answer, but look for what's behind the question in your experience. Right? So it's pretty obvious, I think, to say that the more you practice this, the quicker it will become a new normal.
Mhm.
But it's also equally true to me. I would say it's obvious to me, but may not be to you, that you don't have to do it in big chunks. You can do it in little chunks, momentary things. So whether you're busy doing something else, you know, let's say you're busy with a job. It doesn't matter what the job is, and you need to go to the toilet. Well, what do? You take a break and go to the toilet, don't you? Or you put it off to a slightly more convenient moment. But they're just things that happen. You don't have to consider that in a heavy duty way. It's just something you do. Well, you could do the same thing with this. Right? You might find that you're in the middle of doing something, but that chore, for example, is pretty well ingrained what you do, and you've got space in your mind to think about something else. So you could do it in those moments. And if you only do it for 5 seconds, if you say, I'm gonna count 30 seconds, and you go 1 cat and dog, 2 cat and dog, 3, it takes a long time to get to 30 seconds. You know, it seems like you're doing it for ages, yet it's really only 30 seconds. But it's the perception of it. So it's the same thing with this stuff. If you do something for a couple of seconds, 2 or 3 seconds, many times a day, it's going to have a big effect. If you do it for a couple of seconds once a week, it's not going to have much of an effect. Although there could be a lie in that too. If when you do it, it opens something up. If you have an epiphany of some kind, then that can change things in a big way, and that can happen in milliseconds. But essentially, the way you're doing it, you could say, well, it could have an opening as a result of doing that, or it might mean that the long slog, the long game that I'm playing is that I'm going to eventually change the way I am. Now, because you've learned to be hypervigilant, you're going to be hypervigilant until you don't use it for a long time. And then your vigilance will drop back to a more, I don't want to use the word normal, but you know what I mean. It'll be less hyper, if you like. Right? So one of the things that I've found too is I'm frequently amazed that I heard a sound, and yet when I listen for that sound, it's not there. And yet I recognize that I heard it in the back of my mind. It's really a weird one. Okay, so it's like, did I hear a dog bark a second ago? No, it's like I can't really bring it up as a positive memory and get, oh, there it is again. Okay, right over there, right away. And it was so faint that it was hardly discernible. And in fact, I wasn't even sure that it was a dog, but yet everything told me it was a dog. Right, so your hypervigilance could be that you might have heard a bark, or you might have picked up a smell, or all sorts of things that could have preempted the dog appearing a couple of seconds later, kind of thing. Or you could be psychic. That's possible too. You know, who knows? There's all sorts of possibilities involved with that one. Yeah.
You think there's such a thing as psychic? That's cool.
Yeah, I do. Of course I do. Yeah. I mean, anything's possible. I see all sorts of things. But, you know, I thought about it. I see my dog, you know, and my dog loves to chase the ball. I throw a ball when we go for a walk every day. I throw this ball for the dog, and she'll hair at 1,000 miles an hour and pick up the ball and run back and drop it at my feet saying, throw it again, throw it again. So I'll throw it like that. And if she, when I pick it up, she rushes off where she thinks I'm going to throw it. And if I throw it in another direction and she doesn't see it, she starts to smell for it. She runs around with her nose and she'll cover an acre in a matter of a minute and a half. You know, she'll smell every bit of it and she'll find that ball no matter where it is by smelling it. Right? And you can see when she runs across where the ball bounced on the ground and she can smell it, that it hit the ground there. And then she kind of weaves back and forward along the path that the ball rolled until she finds the ball. It's amazing. And then I think to myself, gee, wouldn't it be good to have a sense of smell like a dog? And then I thought to myself, you know what? It'd probably be horrible. I'd be smelling everybody's BO. I could smell all the rotting vegetation. I could, who knows what it would be like. But would I want to have a sense of smell 400 times stronger than what mine is? I don't know. Probably not. But maybe the dog seems to like it.
Hmm.
And your sense of detection for those things that you saw as dangerous is like that. You know, it may not be 400 times, but it's well and truly above the usual.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be until you stop using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, those questions of how much is, you know, in my genes or in my body and how much was trained, you know, I guess we can never know
That's right. We can never know.
that.
Yeah.
But or if it'll disappear, I just won't mind it as much. So all those things are left to the open. But I did yeah, it struck me what you said about sound disappearing, because I am kind of a musician of sorts at times and a music teacher, and it is interesting how you know, music appears for you know, each sound appears and disappears, and it just, a huge piece can be played and then that's it. A second later it's
Yeah.
like it's gone. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. But
especially those low frequencies, you know, like you get a bass guitar and you pluck one of those strings and you hear it, and then you hear it fading out and you're fading out. And at a certain point, you don't know whether you're actually hearing it or whether it's a memory of hearing
yeah,
it. Yeah.
those last seconds. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess you're saying there are no answers about the best way to go about this.
No, I would say don't even bother to think about that. That's going to happen. The way it's going to happen. But I would say consider the good things that you experience today. But let's I don't know the right word, enhance them. Let's anchor them. Let's anchor them. That's the right word. The good things that happen. So you recognise, for example, that because you had this experience of no fearful story going, that you had a different experience of the day. It felt pretty good in that moment for that period, that section of your day. And so look and replay those really good moments that you had during the day, and let's just anchor them a little bit so that they're more likely to reoccur.
What do you mean by anchor them? And also, I would like to point out that it was a very unique day because everyone I knew was away. In other words, I had no phone calls, no WhatsApps. It was a very, very quiet day. So I find people very triggering. My phone buzzing, messages coming in. Do I need to respond or not? My mind is taken up by
Yeah. I get
that.
that. Yep.
What emoji to reply with? Should I reply now or later? These stupid, stupid things that take up like 80% of my brain power. And it's
Right.
like, you know, like
So
when my
what?
sister's family was out of the country, I had so much more quiet because she wasn't posting 10 times a day. Like, I don't, it literally steals my life. Like, I don't know how to, it hijacks me. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So what I'm saying is appreciate the 20%, and don't spend the 20% worrying about the 80%.
Yeah. Yeah. So not try to change it just yet, because my life right now is my life right now, and not try to like
Absolutely, yes.
disengage some people and things. And
No, there's not a thing you need to do about anything. Just look at what actually is and what's the result of story. Yeah, and see, and I fell into the trap of giving you something to do there, didn't I?
yeah, there is, with my family and a lot of the people I'm involved with, like for long time, and there's heavy stuff there and thoughts emotionally. The question also arises for me about, so when there's physical hypervigilance outside, with my family, it's emotional vigilance and triggerings, and not knowing if to treat them like psychological dangers or to say, oh, they're just pussycats. In other words, there's a lot of that going on in my brain. There's just a ton of stories, and some of them feel like true, and like I do need to not go into old patterns of opening my heart to them and thinking that their motives are good and kind when really they're just thinking about themselves. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's a lot of stories, but it's a lot about, um, it occupies my mind a lot of,
Yeah. I get
I
that.
feel like I feel like I came from a very Pollyanna type thing of like, butterflies and flowers and assuming everyone is sweet at heart and I just have to pull it out of them. Like, so, and I'm trying, and I'm kind of starting to realize the world is not necessarily like that and change, but I get very confused. I'm very concrete. I'm very, I don't know. So like my mind is changing and I feel I do need to watch out for these things. I don't know. It's like, how much do I go into those stories? But if I don't, my heart could spontaneously just be open again and then get hurt all the time. I don't want to be I feel like I'm not matched to life. Like life is one thing, and I try to keep imagining it pinker and butterflyier than it is. And I don't want to go back to that because it's been very harmful and hurtful to my heart to give it so completely all the time and get back something else. I feel like I'm out of sync in life, and I'm trying to recalibrate and
Yeah.
see things differently. So I'm not sure if like trying to like ignore my thoughts or feelings or outlooks, like if I do this work when I'm with them, or should I let it be a psychological process when I'm with them? And yes, go into a bit of stories and analyzing and changing my perspective and let it go, the practice for those times. Or anyway, maybe I'm asking unanswerable questions, but
Yeah, so my thoughts are that if it occurs to you to do something or not to do something, then that's what's there. You don't, no point in telling yourself ahead of time that this is what you should do, or to try and shape and control what you're going to do. And so what I'm saying is that the story that that what will happen is what needs to happen is a good story for you at the moment. And so really, if you relax and just observe whatever's available to you at any moment, then that's exactly what you need to do. And so don't try and plan ahead in order to survive the best you can. You don't need to do that. You are going to survive. Right? This is not going to take you out. This is not going to kill you. Whatever happens, at the very worst can be unpleasant, and at the very best can be very pleasant. Essentially, that's the range that you're operating in. So neither one is actually a survival issue. Yet your habitual way of looking at a whole lot of things is that it is a survival issue. And as soon as we can get you away from operating in survival mode, that you'll have the perspective where you can things will improve a lot. So first thing we have to do is break this survival mode way of operating all the time by recognizing that it's not actually necessary. And you had an experience of that today, big time, didn't you?
That's interesting. I would say yes and no, because it just so happened that I sensed the two dogs in advance and they weren't dangerous and they weren't off leash. And the couple of suspicious things ended up dissolving, and there was no contact with family, and things were quiet on the social front. So it was as calm a day as it could be.
Mm.
And
So you're giving the
yeah,
day credibility. The day doesn't deserve the credit for what happened.
I feel if it was noisier and I had had more phone pings and family involvement, I could have been lost in rage. I don't know, or fear. Like I feel it. Yes, I did the exploration and I was committed to it, and I kept on doing it all day and to the night. But the day enabled it. In other words, it could have gone south. You know what I mean? But I also will say what you said about being in survival mode. I really, really am. And even with like we're going away next week with a family, but um, with my health stuff, I'm on an extremely, 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 extremely strict and specific diet. There's only a few things I can eat. So yes, I always feel if I don't bring I bring a food and an oven. In other words, everywhere I go, I have to plan ahead, bring the 5 things that I can eat with me. I can't just rely on like things will be
Yes.
okay. So
Yeah.
even on the very level of food, it feels like survival mode. And then we had like a dust storm here, so it feels like, oh my gosh, I'm not in control of the air, and then my body panics. Just feel even air and food. Well, food is more of a problem on the day to day. Everything does feel like life or death or survival mode. Because I could get very, very sick if I go off by anything.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Yeah.
so
But you can
yeah,
do those things and look after yourself most of the time, not necessarily all the time, but most of the time you can do that. Fine. You can be relaxed about doing that. You can do it in a relaxed way. You know what food you can eat, you know what needs to be done, and you just do it. It's not a case of can I do it or can't I do it? It's definitely not a case of what will happen if I don't or what will happen if I do, because
right. There
you
is
will do it.
anxiety about will those foods be available wherever I go? Will I be able? In other words, there is, will there be a refrigerator? There is some survival about it. Although now that I'm several years into this, it's a bit calmer. At the beginning, it was like, oh my God, the store is out of my food.
Yeah.
So there was kind of a lot of anxiety around it. But so I guess when I'm away with family and it'll be very intense stuff in the next week, what would you say would be a helpful practice or thing to say to my brain, or look at? Should I try not to get caught up in emotion? Should I just label it as thought?
Oh, I think you're beyond that. That's a little bit simplistic there for you. I think you're at the stage where you can ask yourself, you can ask your brain, if you like, what is actual that I'm responding to, or what is a construct, a story, a construct, a concept that I'm responding to. So in
Everything's a
other words,
concept.
well, differentiate between what is in your actual physical environment. Call that the actual stuff. So what is it? What is in your physical environment, and what do you imagine could be in your environment? Just discriminate between those two. I'm not
But
saying do anything about it.
do I say like mother or do I say person? In other words, at what level are we saying story? In other words, it seems like everything is a story. I could call the ocean, or I could say blue or water. Like, I don't know. How much am I? I'm getting a little
Yes,
lost with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, well, they're good questions, and so what they do is they tell me that you're aware of levels in this kind of stuff. So when you look at blue water and you say ocean, right? When you say ocean, you're seeing something all-encompassing, right? It's probably going a little bit too far at this stage, but just let me say to you that when you're saying ocean, you're relating to an idea in your mind, right? But don't worry about that at the moment, because when you say ocean, you're still looking at the blue water and calling it ocean. Well, then you're seeing it bigger. But when you're looking at the blue water, you're limiting yourself to seeing the color. And when you're looking at water, you're limiting yourself to seeing movement and whatever texture and stuff that you would describe as water from the visual perspective, right? But all of those, let's just put in the realm of physical. They're physical. So mother, right, if she's standing beside you or if she's within range of any of your physical senses, then she's actual. If she's outside of range of any of your physical senses, then she's conceptual. She doesn't exist except as a concept when she's in the next room, unless you can
So I don't
hear
have
her.
to say, yeah, so I don't have to say this is a person, and any story about me ever having seen her, her giving birth to me is a story. In other words, how far do I take this concept business?
Well, for the sake of this exercise, I'd say
Yeah.
take it as far as it can comfortably go. So recognise and use this as your criteria. If it's currently stimulating any of your physical senses, then it's actual. If it's not, it's conceptual. Right? So mother giving birth to you, that's obviously a story. It's a story that appears in memory or well, you probably don't remember being born, but, so the idea of mother giving birth to you is pure story, isn't it? Even
Yeah, but
though,
just like that I've
at
ever
another
seen it before.
level, sorry?
Or even that I've ever seen this person before. It's all in memory, right? Like, so.
Yes, that's right,
Yeah.
yes. So just if you differentiate between what is actual, that is what stimulates a physical sense, and everything else being conceptual, at this stage, you will start to soften your hypervigilance about things, and you'll certainly move away from reacting to threats that are not actual. The idea that mother's going to say something to you that's going to upset you, that's a story until it actually happens. Right? But if you believe that story, you'll react to it even though she's not there saying it. You're just thinking it.
And when it does happen that I upset myself or that a thought comes and I get upset by it, what do I do?
Same thing. Recognize the difference from what did you get upset about? Right? So when she says something, right, you can say in the beginning, you can say, oh, I'm responding to what she said. But if you look at it, right, what was physical for you, what was actual for you, was sound in your ears. What you got upset about was the meaning that you applied to it. Concept. That was conceptual.
Mm-hmm.
What upset you wasn't actual. That was just sound in your ears. What actually upset you was your relationship to the story about what it meant. So can you see the value of this? What is actual and what is conceptual? If you start to delineate those two, that opens up opportunities for you in a big way. Don't have judgments about it. Don't have judgments about how successful you are. Don't have judgments about what it means. Just practice doing that. What is actual and what is conceptual?
I
And
guess
what
it
did,
reminds me of the story you were talking about before with the neighbor who was yelling at you, and then you were yelling back at him, and you were wondering what would happen if he yelled at you again. And I guess I kind of feel like I'm wondering what will happen when these triggering
yes,
events are bound to happen again. But
absolutely, absolutely. And that's what I say. They're a wonderful opportunity for you to realise. Yes. Yeah.
except there is a chain of events. In other words, I don't know. I feel like discounting the fact that there's psychological issues when we relate to people, and that is a danger, because even scientifically, if you feel lonely and your relationships are not good, that's the number one predictor of how happy you'll be, how healthy you'll be, and when you'll die. So I
Mm,
feel like it's not nothing, and we can't like to pretend that the quality of our relationships is not an actual thing. I think scientifically it even is. So I feel like
yeah. Okay.
these
No,
things
but
feel like a
he,
danger for a reason. Like we need
yes,
connection for our well-being. And
I agree with you. So yeah, but let me say this:
yeah.
that psychological study came from a perspective, and I'm certainly not saying it's wrong. It's definitely right, but it came from a perspective that believed that a lot of conceptual stuff is actual. Right. So in other words, that psychological damage doesn't come from what we think it comes from. Right. So mother insults you. Do you think that you feel bad because she insulted you? No. You feel bad because of what you think that means. Right? What she did, your physical connection was with sound. And that the sound that happened to be in the form of words got taken in by you as sound and given meaning by your brain. And that meaning is what you responded to. You didn't respond to the sound, although that may have been part of it, depending if she's speaking to you in a really aggressive, angry tone, you may respond to the sound at some extent. But essentially, it's the sound is not what makes you feel bad. It's the meaning that you apply to the words and how you feel about that. And that's what will shorten your life, not the sound that comes out of her.
Ah, I don't know, Vince. I feel like even babies, which is preconceptual, and even plants, when they're spoken to in a certain tone or played rock music versus Mozart, this
Yeah, yeah,
affects
I
the
get that.
physical
Yeah,
growth. So babies and plants are not having a concept yet, and even they
yeah,
are
yeah.
affected by love.
Yeah, I get that, and as I said earlier, if she's talking to you in an aggressive tone, you may respond to that aggressive tone. So you may respond to the sound, but the biggest component of that won't be that. That will be just part of it. The big thing will be the meaning that you apply to it. So yes, certainly, you know, animals and plants respond to certain tones better than others. They'll go towards some and away from others and so on. So I'm not discounting things like that completely. What I'm saying is that the biggest thing in life is the meaning that we apply to things. That's 95%, and 5% might be the other bit that you were talking about there.
But even if in other words, if you're around people all the time that, let's say you ignore meaning, you don't understand meaning of words, but you understand tone and face, and it's not coming from love, then I don't know. I feel like I'm questioning this because it's a huge thing in my life, my
Mm,
relations to other people, especially my family, but how I relate to people is a huge thing. In other words, I don't think it's a coincidence that the day that I had this peace and whatever is when I had no contact with my family or with anyone, because that's a huge barrier for me. That takes up 90%
Yeah,
of my
yeah.
energy, I would say. People, relating to them, trying to figure all this out. And a huge question in my mind is whether I could just be all alone with my enlightenment and the universe, or if we actually need love, good relationships, and people. And
Yeah, I get what you're
if you have
saying.
someone who's relating to you with contempt or with anger all the time, I don't know if that's conducive to a good life, no matter how awakened we are. Or, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
Or
sure.
maybe,
Yeah. So I would say that becomes a different story when it's like that, if it is as you explain it. And if they talk to you contemptuously all the time, right, you're not going to change them. And no matter how enlightened you are, if they're attacking you, you're going to feel defensive. Right? So at a certain point, the issue becomes, well, I have to put up a boundary. Now, whether that boundary means that you can do something or whether you've got to remove yourself from the situation, who knows, But yeah, it's to a degree. But before we go to that extent, it is very definitely a case of what. So if you talk to that baby in an angry tone constantly, it will stop reacting to it. And if it's
but they'll
an angry
become
tone,
antisocial sociopaths. That's what happens.
who knows? Yeah, of course, all sorts of things could happen. But what I'm saying is that the angry tone doesn't hurt you. It's what you think it means that hurts you. Certainly, there will be a physical response where you will pull away at the angry tone, right? But the angry tone itself doesn't actually hurt you. It's what you think it means that you respond to with stress hormones, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Yeah, and a lot of
all
it
I'm
is more
saying is at this
subtle.
stage, if you can delineate between what is actual, what impinges on your physical senses, and what is conceptual, everything else, that's a good start. Let's not worry about
Mm-hmm.
the bigger picture. Let's not worry about what that other thing means. If we can do that to start with, then we can start to see how bad they actually are, not how bad you now think they are. You now think
Mm-hmm.
they are because you're hypervigilant about it, because it's been going on for a long time and you've always responded feeling that it's over the top. So maybe you anticipate stuff before it actually happens. Who knows? Or maybe it's the way you say it is a very accurate description. In which case I'd say, get out of there. What else can you do? But maybe that's not possible. Well, then you're in trouble, aren't you? But let's start with trying to clarify what the situation actually is. And if you can just separate what is actual, what impinges on your physical senses, and everything else, which is conceptual, just by noticing those two things with every situation, that's a great start. That's a really good place to start off with. Because what you did today, even though there was nobody around to stimulate what you described, what you learned today was that today could feel pretty good when you didn't respond to what was conceptual. And what you did when you walked and you told yourself what you were telling yourself was you got out of your head. You got out of the stories that said, watch out for the dog or watch out for the dangerous people. You got out of your head, and so consequently you had an experience that was a lot better. So you did exactly what I'm talking about today, even though you didn't do it from the perspective of what I'm telling you now. You did it. You delineated what was actual from story. So I'm saying,
Yeah.
let's do more of that. Practice that.
Yeah.
And the
And I
first
guess
time you have an experience that, like you did today, even if it's momentary, in the midst of a whole lot of that other stuff, that will be a huge opening for you. You will go, oh, okay, now this is possibilities big time.
Yeah, because when I'm with them, a lot of time my mind is just wandering back and forth, did they mean that? Did they not? Are they lying? Are they not? Are they being harmful? Like my mind is just wondering, is it me? Is it them? It's
Yes,
just
yep,
all these wonderings all the time. Am I
yes. And
overreacting?
aren't
What's
those
the
wanderings
opposite?
stress-inducing?
Oh yeah.
Yep, for sure. Yep. And they're unnecessary
I'm
because they're
wondering,
wanderings. Yeah, go on.
uh, is it possible for you, Tammy, to distance yourself from them?
In
N-
general, I've been doing it more. The coming week, less so.
mm,
Yeah, I can
because
try to take more times away, but yeah. But I'm wondering about the times when I am with them, like how to
well, I think it's a common experience that talking to people puts you automatically in old habits, and maybe sometimes we need these retreats there are in Buddhism, just to change the scenery and learn new habits in good conditions.
yeah, and I think I had a self mini retreat the other day, but it's more about now that I'm going back to crazy life for a week. I just want to practice this for while I'm in the thick of it.
Yep, yep. That's a good time to do it.
Yeah.
But also about what you were saying about can people live alone? It's and what science says. It's also that people are different. We are conditioned differently, and for some people it is fine to live 2 years not seeing anyone, and for others a week is it's mortifying. I can't live like that. So you don't know until you try.
Yeah, and they put people in solitary confinement as like the worst punishment, even when you're among criminals. So there's that. But
And for
yeah,
Buddhist
so
monk, it
Vince, I
would be
guess,
nothing. It would be,
Yeah.
oh, thank you,
yeah,
so grateful.
I always
yeah.
used to think if I ever got in prison, I'd love a solitary confinement. Please put me in solitary. Mm.
uh, yeah. All right. So you say it's not dangerous and maybe doable even amongst the natives um, to try and differentiate. And then when my mind just doesn't stop, what do I say? Wondering
Well,
about them. I just notice it.
if you're noticing that your mind is not stopping, celebrate the fact that you noticed it. That is a really big thing. Because when you notice it, you're not in it anymore, are you?
I can be noticing I'm in a storm and be in the storm. I have a very unique capability.
Okay. Yeah, right. Then you could experiment with moving more towards the noticing and less as being in the story.
Yeah.
Just experiment. It's all a big experiment because we don't know
Yeah.
what will work for you until we have a go at it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so strong for me, the desire for things to work out, like just getting caught up in that craziness. So I will
Yeah.
do my
Yeah.
best. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And of course, you will do your best. You can't help that. You'll do that. No effort required.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, Vince. Thanks,
Oh,
everyone. Thanks, Vince.
thank you, Tammy. All right, well, we'll wind up in a couple of minutes if nobody's got anything else to bring up.
Vince, John here.
Hi, John.
Can you, by the way, can you see me?
Not now. No, your video's turned off.
All right. I mean, it says my video's on.
Okay.
Oh, hang on.
Right.
I'll see. Hang on.
You got the little camera down the bottom left-hand side of the screen.
And I don't know. The other day I could see myself. Anyway, there's a problem. It says it can't detect the camera. That's all right. Anyway, look, I've got to go too. But that was a very interesting discussion with Tammy, and it's been sort of on my mind a little bit along the same lines. I don't know. I'm attracted to this work because just some of the things you say resonate, and especially around the story making. And even your conversation with Tammy then really was helpful, and yet I'm still I'm still not getting some things, and it's principally around my personal situation. My story involves living with a family member who struggles with addiction, and so that really does fire up stories big time for me. I found coming back, I was really in not a great place a couple of months ago around this, but I found your attending these meetings really does help. I think exactly what you said, like what is actual. People say things, and my story making will just kick in straight away. And so that's been helpful, and yet I still find there is a situation that this personality of John has to deal with. And it's an interesting word you used before, boundaries. So it just seems like modern psychology, or I don't know, even if it's wisdom or something, has useful things to say about how to handle those situations. So, yeah, anyway, I'm not sure exactly what I want. I'd like to have a bit more of a discussion with you in this group, or possibly even one-on-one, about how to negotiate that. And I think the other thing that was pointed out to me is it's a lot of this, and Tammy was kind of referring to it too, because a lot of this stuff is wired into our nervous systems.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Thinking about it, I mean, the stories do come, but it's, it's nervous system stuff.
Yeah. Certainly we condition that nervous system pretty easily. Yeah.
What did you say? We condition it?
We condition the nervous system, that's right, yeah.
Well, or it gets conditioned. I don't know that we condition it.
Well,
it gets
was meaning that,
from a very early age. I get you. Sorry, I'm not trying to split words, but it gets conditioned from a very pre-language often. This stuff is set down, and so we find ourselves. I mean, families are great for triggering it, aren't they?
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
But someone who sounds like our father or mother, can do it, and we all of a sudden we're back in those sort of patterns of reaction, and story making, I guess, follow very quickly, don't they? But anyway, look, so that's kind of what I'd like to tease out a bit more at some stage, but probably not now. I'm getting a bit weary, but.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Well, anytime, John. And if you're in the group and you want to not have it recorded, or if you're at Friday morning's group, which is not recorded, not published, just ask me, and I'm happily turn the camera off.
I don't have any problem. I don't have a problem being recorded. I mean, no, not really. None of this is.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll jump in next time, and when we've got plenty of time and you're feeling more fresh, and we'll.
Yeah. No, I just came in late. Anyway, it's been an interesting discussion. Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. Okay. It's all grist for the mill, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm signing off. But thank you very much to everyone.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Yes.
Just one last thing came up, and I don't know if it's just an idea, an option, possibility. Like, you know, about taking it to the lab, and I thought about when you have this retreat conditions, imagining talking to your mother, and you know, like in this, when it doesn't get overwhelming, and you can stop it at any point, but you can imagine the situation and try to look at what is actual.
Yeah.
Well, it's not actual because it's all a story. You are imagining, but just training yourself in this way.
Yeah. Or even call it deconditioning. Yeah, that's a really good one, that, because when you imagine the situation, your brain doesn't know the difference between what is actual and what is imagined. It responds in the same way to both of them. And what where the value of working with those things is where there's just the right amount of juice, just the right amount of stimulation, that you can not overwhelmed with it, but you can feel it. And at that point, then you can start to look at those things. That's a really valuable point. So what Bianca said of taking it to the lab is where you've got that quiet moment where you can just sit and imagine it, and then look at what is actual and what is conceptual there will be very, very helpful.
I sometimes then, when I try to do exercises like that, then find that you're trying to experience something and then analyze something at the same time as experiencing it. And it all gets a bit kind of self-referential or something, and knocks you out of an experience. It's like earlier when you said, well, once you realize that you were having the experience, you're no longer in the experience. And yeah, it's just feels a bit difficult to balance, or to just hold a thing without breaking it. Or it's a bit like the whole Heisenberg thing. Once you start analyzing it, it's no longer the it's no longer the experience. It's just one of the kind of frustrations or paradoxes of this whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you can see it as making it difficult to do, but in actual fact, there's another interesting aspect to it, and that is that by doing it artificially like that, when you imagine it enough to get a sensation or a feeling or an emotion going, a little bit, and then you're analysing it. Now, how you analyse it is very important, you know, so you're not looking for an intellectual answer, you're looking for what is the actual experience of it, right? And the fact that it knocks you out of the experience is a really good thing, in the sense that you get out of the experience because you recognise that it's intellectually induced. And so it's a good learning experience for you, because that's what happens in the actual situation. The intellectual experience of the possibilities that you're reacting to cease to have the power that they had in the original thing, when you were taking them to be actual, when they weren't. They were conceptual. So it's a tricky one, you know. You can see it as a negative or you can see it as a positive, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to that left brain, right brain thing. You feel that you're kind of shuffling from one to the other, or trying to decode one in terms of the other, or understand one in terms of, but It's all work. I find that very interesting about this hypervigilance that was being discussed earlier, and this idea that, someone can be hypervigilant of dogs and things like that, which to me, I don't understand that. That's I wouldn't be hypervigilant of dogs, and that seems like, wow, that's really hypersensitive. But then this morning, actually, when I was just out walking in the park, and after I'd read your little missive about the guy having a conversation in the coffee shop and how the guy reacted to it, when I was walking in the park, I suddenly realized that I did have this tension with other people. I'm just hypervigilant at some level of people all the time. Not that I'm worried they're going to do anything physical, but I'm just anxious about what they're thinking, or I just feel, that, and I don't trust them. I don't worry that they're going to do anything physical to me. But when people are around, I now have noticed, a sort of tension in my stomach, like all the time. I think, well, this is such kind of hypervigilance, and I must spend my whole life in this condition of this contraction when I'm around other people. And when you were saying earlier, I mean, I'm never happier than when I'm on my bicycle or camping somewhere by myself. Other people are hell, and without them, I feel that I could be quite enlightened. But once they come in, my left brain just seems to kick in, that they're judging me or they're criticizing me or whatever. And again, actually, it's interesting because I feel like, by the same token, I'm a hyper judgmental person, and I can see all of this as just being projection. And if I criticized, subconsciously or quietly to myself, if I stopped judging people so much, maybe I wouldn't worry that they were judging me so much.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the same thing, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, good one, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. All stuff to work on.
Yeah, or to notice, just to notice. You don't need to work on it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, no, exactly. This is a problem. It all goes to my left brain, and I love kind of analyzing things. Again, actually, so I don't want to keep you, Vince, but when you were then talking, a lot of this seems to be about deconstructing things, deconstructing concepts, and then even deconstructing perceptions. And as if we're trying to, because again, I see a lot of this in a kind of neurophysiological kind of way, as if we're trying to get to a place where we aren't seeing the ocean, we don't see ocean, we see blue. And then we, as if you're trying to build the whole thing up from bottom up rather than the top down experience that we normally have. And you're trying to get in right at the bottom level of perception, just at the kind of level of, the organism or whatever. And you're trying to, but as if
no, it's a good thing you've seen that. Yeah, we're aiming to notice detail a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Right down to the level of experience, right down to the level of perception, not even perception.
Yeah. Well, beyond perception, beyond interpretation to experience. Yeah. But by the closer we get into it, it changes. It ceases to be the conceptual thing that it was when we started off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when I look at things in that, it's like, I kind of really feel I struggle with the very basics of all of this. When people say, oh, become aware of the sensations of breathing. And then when you look for sensations, well, I always struggle because I think there's no sensations there. Sensations don't exist. It's just an awareness of sensation. You can't divide the two. There's just the experience. There's no, when you're looking for sensation as if a sensation was a thing, it doesn't exist. It kind of goes back to, I remember, like even right at school when you were taught about, pain receptors in your skin. I used to think, well, where is the pain? Is it in the receptor, or is it in your brain, or where is this sensation? And you realize, well, the sensation doesn't exist. It's a whole combination of things, isn't it? It's just
absolutely, yeah. So we were talking about hypervigilance before. Now we're talking about hyperactivity, and hyperactivity of that left brain, that analysis that doesn't stop. Yeah.
Well, that's
No, I suffered from the same thing. Everything got pulled apart. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't make sense as soon as you look at the details of it. Yeah.
No, it's all a story, isn't it? It's all It's funny, actually, going back to actually I mentioned the ayahuasca experience I had. And one of the kind of weird things that came out of that was I suddenly realized that all the science we learned, or taught, is kind of, it's just a story. It's absolutely, it's not true. It was as if someone had made it up. I then got this experience that God had kind of made up this whole scientific story and just fed it into us to kind of use. But actually it wasn't real. It was just all made up. Which, again, that kind of also made me think, you know, back when Darwin discovered or put forward his theory of evolution, and then the counter-evolutionary people said fossil records, you know, that proves evolution, and they would then sort of say, no, God just put that fossil record there, so we thought that evolution existed. And you think, well, that's could be the way it was, but actually that doesn't disprove anything. That just means that just another way of looking at the fossil record and evolution. It all just it's two ways of looking at the same thing, and they both can be true or untrue, or they're just stories or whatever. Anyway, yeah. No, there's a lot to look up, but yeah, well, thanks. I'll let you go now, Vincent. Thank you very much for everyone's contributions. It's always so interesting to hear other people's stories, which seem not to relate to your own, and then suddenly you do think, oh, wow, that is that was very helpful. Yeah. This whole thing just kind of, to me, it's like a big I don't know, a big circle or something, and you can get in at one part, and it always links into the whole thing.
Yeah.
Every morning when I read your missive, it just thinks that, well, wow, that's exactly what I was looking for. That entry point, you know, that answered the question I had, you know. And it always seems that it's, well, whether, yeah, because it is all the same question, isn't it? It's all the same problem. Yeah, and we just can jump on at one point and then just hopefully get
it doesn't matter where we get on. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Martin.
Anyway, thank you very much, Vince. Thank you.
All right. See you later.